Hello everyone, in today's video we are once again on PC Gamer. We're going to be talking about Ubisoft and it's just constant bad decisions that they always make, with good decisions in between, which makes it kind of worse. This is written by Rich Stanton. Thank you for the article, it will be linked down below. The title goes, Ubisoft made a good Prince of Persia game, and so of course it disbanded the team shortly after release. You can't rewind this. It's just so Ubisoft. They make a good game that everyone kind of likes. It doesn't sell tens of millions of copies. So they make it they call it a failure and disband the team. Which this game was never going to sell tens of millions of copies. I'm sorry. Even though the game was good and it looked really nice, it was a spin-off Prince of Persia game. And Prince of Persia doesn't exactly have the namestay it used to have. Ubisoft's stewardship of Prince of Persia has an extraordinary highs, more than a few lows, and has often felt a little confused. The latter impressions wasn't helped this year by releasing two distinct Prince of Persia side-scrollers within a few months of one another. Oh, that's right. I forgot that was even the case. The Rogue Prince of Persia, developed by Dead Cells support studio Evil Empire, and the Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown, developer by Ubisoft Monte. The Lost Crown released in early July and was generally well received across platforms and holds a handsome 86 on Metacritic. That's pretty good. PCG's Molly's Taylor liked it well enough, but felt the poor opening dragged down the fantastic second half. But the critical reception didn't lead to high sales, and news reports from a report by French YouTuber Gotos for Origami subsequently confirmed by Ubisoft statement says the development team behind it is now disbanded across other projects. And I just think that's really unfortunate. I'm very curious what they mean by poor sales. I am very skeptical when a big company talks about poor sales, because sometimes companies like, for instance, Square Enix, when the original Tomb Raider remake came out, it sold 6 or 7 million copies and was deemed a failure, which I feel like if selling 6 million copies is a failure, I think you need to rethink your pricing strategy or something. You're doing something wrong. So I am curious what to know that, like, I will never find out, but I'm very curious how many this actually sold, because what do they mean by didn't get high sales? Because if like I said before earlier, if this is because they didn't sell tens of millions of copies, this game was never going to sell tens of millions of copies. I'm sorry, but even the game can be good, but the Prince of Persia franchise isn't a tens of millions of sales franchise. Especially if it's a 2D side-scroller spin-off, not a mainstay game. So that's the really sad part, is that I don't, like, it's really hard to say if what they mean by high sales, because that is, like, it really, there's a vast difference between what some people say high sales are and what some companies mean have high sales. The Origami report says sales were way lower than expected, to the extent that the developers' team's pitch for a sequel was very quickly re-engineered into a pitch for 2 expansions instead. Ubisoft reportedly reasoned that the sequel would cannibalize the original sales, which seems wacky. That makes no sense. Ubisoft reportedly reasoned that the sequel would cannibalize the original sales? Who's buying the second one instead of the first one? That doesn't make sense to me. I agree with the writer. It seems wacky. I mean, a sequel generally doesn't sell well more than the first one. Generally, it depends on, obviously it's case by case basis, but that is, I feel like that's a really weird way to reason why you shouldn't make a sequel, because you're worried that it's going to eat the sales of the first game. Because this is also, like, you're talking about a development cycle as well, so this game would be 2, maybe 3 years away too. It's not going to eat the sales 3 years later from the game's release date. Like, games can have more sales eventually, but it's not going to be selling crazy amounts 3 years after the game came out. Like, there's very few games that do that, and I don't see this game being it too. That's very strange. Gortors goes on to say that his sources on the team describe an excellent product experience. Later added on X that I heard or read the best production of my life 3 or 4 times in one weekend. around the development of Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown. Alternatively, a hope for another way of creating and rehabilitating zone for people burned out by Beyond Good and Evil 2. The team was disbanded by Ubisoft. Interesting. That's very sad. I'm even though I've read on I'm still baffled by their reasoning of the not making the sequel. But it is even worse that not only are they not making the sequel, they're also disbanding the team to work on other projects, because it seems like the team was doing very well together and they worked well together. The best production of their life, apparently. Ubisoft has issued a statement to Eurogamer from the Lost Crown senior producer that essentially confirms its vision of events. I'm extremely proud of our team's work and passion at Ubisoft Montpellier to create a game that resonates with players and critics alike. I'm confident in its long-term success, said Abdel Hawk Elgas. Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown is now at the end of its post-launch roadmap with 3 free content updates and 1 DLC that releases in September. We are now focusing on making the game available to more players. It was recently launched on Steam and available on Mac by this winter. Oh, that's right. This game wasn't available on Steam at the get-go, which also means that the sales were down because the PC sales were probably really low comparatively. Because if you don't launch a game on Steam, your sales are just lower than they would be, which is also another thing of like this game feel like it was set up for failure, even though even though the game was actually good. Like, this is a sad one because the game was good, it didn't sell as well. Though once again, selling well for Ubisoft might be different definition of what I think that this game's selling well. I think if this game hit 7-digit sales, it would be a success, because this is using a property that a lot of people don't know, because Prince of Persia is a old school game that hasn't had a game in a very long time, and not a lot of people know that. Like, I'm not saying that Prince of Persia means nothing, but it is not a property people know a lot about nowadays because it's been so dormant. And it hasn't had a lot of advertisement. So it's very difficult to say, like, I just don't understand the thought process of the low sales. I could be wrong, though. It could be like it only sold a couple 100,000, which I still think would be fine. But obviously, as Ubisoft, you don't want a game only selling a couple 100,000. I think if this game sold in the 7 digits, I think it should have been greenlit a sequel. Because, like, I can't imagine these teams, like, this game costing a crazy amount of money as well, but we'll see. They need to work on the 8 Assassin's Creed games that they're being worked on or something like that. Most of the team members who worked on Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown have shifted to other projects that will benefit from the experience. We know players have a lot of love for this brand, and Ubisoft is excited to bring more Prince of Persia experiences in the future. It is somehow very Ubisoft that after putting together a relatively small team which had produced a great Prince of Persia, it seems to have panicked in its initial sales and just abandoned its strong new direction for the series altogether. Yeah, it does feel like that way. It feels like that was a small team that you could build many great games on. You don't need every single game you make to be a crazy big game. This game was small. It doesn't cost as much to make, 100%. Like, I don't know how much it costs to make games generally, but I know within a reasonable amount that this game costs less to make than a big AAA game. Because this wasn't a AAA game. It was a smaller team. It wasn't hundreds of people working on it. It was a team of dozens at best. So, like, you need smaller games in between the big games, because sometimes the big games don't sell very well. And these smaller games can still sell a reasonable amount and sometimes hit the 7-digit numbers, and then you're like, okay, good, now we don't need the AAA, the crazy big bet to sell crazy amounts. It can just sell a reasonable amount or an okay amount. But I mean, Ubisoft doesn't work like that, apparently, which is weird because they are really reeling in a lot of ways. So I feel like they should be working on smaller games, because it would help with their cost output. There is sadly no Prince to say, wait, that's not how it happened, and rewind time to fix any mistakes. There's no word of what project the team members have been moved on to, though Ubisoft Montpellier continues to work on the mythical Beyond Good and Evil 2. Lord knows what happens going on that production. Yeah, I can see that. As the Prince of Persia and Ubisoft, the sands of time still looms large over the series' history, not least because of the protracted and seemingly chaotic development of the remake that is now incredibly due in 2026. Oh, and it is no longer has a remake in the title. As for The Lost Crown, Ubisoft hopes it can enjoy a long tail as it comes to Steam and slowly reaches more players. Still, that team and that scale could have done a lot more with the series than produce one very good dead end. Yeah, I agree with this guy. Like, I feel like they could have built on that team and continue making more smaller scoped games, because I feel like this is a broader problem with the AAA industry, is that every AAA studio has like two big bets a year, and like it's just, or like they have two big projects, and if those projects don't make hundreds of millions of dollars or billions, they're just screwed. And it's like, guys, you have so many things you could be doing with this much money. You can make smaller projects so you can make more money overall, but you just not banking on one big bet. Like, you can't be a Call of Duty. You can't be a Fortnite, but you can be like, even like with Ubisoft, the Assassin's Creed games, like you make an Assassin's Creed game they've been doing it like every year, but I don't think the sales have been getting better every year, except for like the one when they overhauled the game, maybe when they turned it into an RPG. But it feels like it's so weird for Ubisoft, because they have so many good franchises and they just do nothing with them. And I don't know, it's so strange. Unfortunately, it looks like they're not fixing the problem, they're actually making it worse. And I feel bad for the team that worked on a good game. And I'm interested in, once again, like what they mean by poor sales, because if I really do feel, I have zero confidence in Ubisoft of them saying poor sales and actually being poor sales. But then again, with Steam not being there on launch, it could have actually been poor sales now that I think about it. But it's hard to say. Hopefully it goes well with all the team members of that team and they actually are being able to be actually used properly. At least they weren't fired, I guess. Like, considering the industry right now, at least they weren't fired. So that's good, at least. Thank you everyone for watching today's video. I appreciate it, you being here. If you'd like to support me, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you'd like to comment down below what you guys think about this. If you've played Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown, I have not. I personally have no attachment to the Prince of Persia IP, and not really of that genre of game as well. So, it's just an unfortunate thing. Thank you all for watching. If you'd like to support me on other platforms, I have a Twitch, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and a Bluesky. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in another video. Goodbye, everyone.